today I have a special guest with me today is Nikki Leathers, and I want to ask you a question, Nikki. Today, how long you been clean?
5 years, January the 5th.
And that's awesome. And
5 years.
we try to do this program to show people that Jesus Christ is the only way to get cured. You know, like I said at the first of my program last week, you know, I went to every rehab. I took all the miracle drugs, and I tried everything possible to get clean. But, you know, the only real way I got clean was laying down everything I had in front of that altar and saying, Jesus, take this from me. Take my life. And he did. He took my life and he gave me a new one. And, you know, this is my dear friend, and she was there with us when, you know, and I'd like to tell the viewers what you do today.
Today,
Yeah,
I just serve the Lord in every way possible to keep my mind on what my mind needs to be on. I was in addiction for 22 years, so in those years you tend to get to the point where you don't know what else to do, and you don't know how to spend your time in a good way, and there is fun after it. So now we just we keep busy, we go to church, we serve the Lord in every avenue of our lives, and that way there's no room for the devil to put any addiction thoughts back in your mind. I lead Celebrate Recovery for the past year now with my co-leader Betty Mae French, and we just serving others is what we do, and that way you don't worry about yourself, and you're not back into that. You can't get back into that selfish mindset that says I need to use to get through this day.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I've had a lot of them days waking up thinking, man, I need to find it. I need to find that fix. These days I wake up sober, and I say, you know, people say, when's it gonna get better? Well, you know, the days I went through these past 5 months, you know, it's getting better every day, but these days are way better than my other days that, you know, back past them 5 months. Because I've had a lot of bad days,
Right.
you know, and I'd like you to give a little bit of your testimony for these viewers, because I really think you have a strong and courage, and, you know, and it touched me, and I believe these people would love to hear it, and I wish they listened to you, because I believe in my heart, Nikki, if you can do it, what you went through, and I know everybody has their own struggles, Nikki.
That's right.
But I know you've been put through the ringer, huh? And I'd like you to share with us and tell us some of it. Anything you want to share.
Okay.
You got
Well, we started out way at a young age being very confused about who I was. My parents divorced, you know, at an early age, which is a lot of our stories, and daddy issues is a lot of our stories also. But my dad was my sidekick. Like, when I wasn't with mom, I was with dad, and his philosophy was if I was allowed to drink at home, then I wouldn't be out having wrecks and going to jail and killing people or myself, which, you know, in a way is a good philosophy when you're not, when you live in sin and things of that nature. Probably maybe 2 years old, the first time I can ever be, remember being drunk to the point that I was throwing up, because I was just tall enough to stand in between the seat. You know, back in the day we didn't do car seats, so I was between my dad and my uncle, standing up in the car seat. So that's how young I was, and we were rabbit hunting, you know, and drinking Natural Light. And that's the first time I ever remember getting drunk to the point I couldn't function. So it went from there. Pretty much my whole life. I was in church on this Sunday with mom, because she's a very strong woman, and thank God for her. I wouldn't be here. Her prayers got me here. Yeah. But the next Sunday, I was recuperating from being tore up all weekend with my dad, so that I could hide it from mom, because there's no way I would have ever went back if she would have known. But, you know, life was just a big party. So at 15, I decided that mama's rules just wasn't for me. So I moved in with daddy. And I love my daddy still. He's a good man. He really is. And you know, he has his ways of thinking, and that's what the way his life has took him, and he just did the best he could with what he had. And I was daddy's little girl. I was the only child, and I just went with him wherever he went. So I moved in with him, like I said, at 15 years old, and life was one big party. It was, but you know, there comes a lot. You pay a lot for that one big party, and he had friends that, you know, they were just not right. They were not right. They didn't realize that I was a 15-year-old girl that they didn't have no business touching or messing with. So that started, you know, that I was not worth anything, because that made me feel very dirty and very at fault. I was at fault because of what they did as grown men, you know. And Dad, well, he was, you know, asleep somewhere, drunk, whatever. They knew what they were doing, and they wasn't the friends he thought they were.
Yeah.
And then, you know, on down the road, I got a boyfriend, and he started spending the night. So, you know, because we would be drunk, and Dad wouldn't want him to drive home. So here's your sign of what two teenagers are going to be doing when you let them drink and spend the night together. At 17, I come up pregnant. So we married, because that was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And I moved back over to Fulton with my mom's family, and we had a home, and we had what we needed, and my husband worked every day, and he provided for us. But I didn't know. You got to understand that this time I had known the party life as far as drinking, but my husband was staying in the bathroom. He was staying in the bathroom for hours and hours.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what is this? What's going on? And so one day I just got, I don't know, there's like people say woman's intuition or gut intuition or whatever. But I got in the bathroom while he was at work, and I was cleaning, and there was the cardboard inside of a paper towel. The paper towel holder, and it was twisted together on both sides and put in the garbage in the bathroom. And I was like, well, that's odd. You know, I was green as to what was going on, but I wasn't stupid.
Yeah.
That was just something odd. You don't take that much time and effort to put something in the garbage can.
Yeah.
So I undone it, and I was just looking, and there was like little bitty baggies. Now, he smoked weed, and I knew he smoked weed from the jump. You know, but these little baggies ain't gonna hold no weed. I knew that. Like, I watched him, and he smoked weed in front of me, so, you know, that was not bad to me, because I'd seen Dad's friends do it or whatever.
Yeah.
But these little baggies, all these little fluorescent baggies that I found, they wasn't gonna hold no weed. But like I said, I'm green, so I'm just sitting there like, okay, what in the world? So I'm crazy. You know, nobody that's ever been on drugs would have done this in their life in Fulton, Mississippi. But I load these little baggies up in my wallet, and I come to Fulton to CJ's Chat and Chew, which is a restaurant at that time where my best friend worked. And I called her outside, and I said, I want you to know what I found, because she was both of our best friends, but she knew my husband before I did. And I just held out those little baggies, and she just stepped back, you know, and she didn't know what to say. She didn't want to set him out, but she knew I wasn't stupid.
Yeah.
Like I said, she was both our friends, and she's like, well, I got something I need to tell you that we'll just have to have a talk about, but you're going to have to keep your mouth shut, and because you're pregnant and you're married and blah, blah, blah. Well, she knew Nikki wasn't going to keep her mouth shut, but she told me it was meth, and you know, told me a few things about meth. And I started understanding the all-night to-dos that, you know, spent in the bathroom and spent outside, and I'm like, how in the world are you not sleeping?
Yeah.
You know, so I went home, and we had when he got home from work, I was ready. I was ready, and I pitched him out. And he cried, and he was gonna quit this and quit that, and I wanted my husband. I love my husband.
Yeah.
I was pregnant. I went straight from mama to him, and I didn't know anything better to do with my life than to take him back. So, you know, I took him back, and something in a woman's mind clicks when your money is going on something. When your money is like, I done had Dustin, my oldest child, and I was like, you're gonna spend my money on this, well, I'm gonna be doing it too. So that's my way of reconciling what I was doing, which was getting on drugs with him.
Yeah, I
And my love for him made that okay. It made it okay. My money was gonna buy it anyway. Dustin wasn't doing without anything, so I might as well be just joining him. So I did. And 2 months later, my dad had my son most times, and we were high. He still went to work. I stayed home. He paid the bills. He took care of everything. But he had a drug problem, and now I had a drug problem.
Yeah.
And so this particular weekend, we done got a big batch. I found out that my family, they're dead now, but they were cooking, and he was getting it from them. And I found out a lot of things that made sense after I put it all together, but it didn't make sense when I was growing up. But anyway, he would use the needle, and I didn't do that, and he wouldn't let me do that.
Yeah.
So I was in the living room with my son, and he went in the bathroom, and I knew what that meant. I kept my son out of the bathroom, and I stayed out of the bathroom. But I've been up 3 days too. Me and him have been up 3 days, and I heard somebody talking on my back porch. Now, I know my husband's in the bathroom, and me and my son are here, and we lived in the country, so he was on the back porch. And when I got out there, he was on his knees talking to God. And his lips were already blue. And I just, y'all who know me know what I did. I was like, you did too much, and I jumped all over him. And I picked him up and I toted him to the car. I still don't know how I did that, and I couldn't probably do it ever again. But I toted him and I put him in the back seat of my car. Now, in the meantime of this, is one of our so-called drug friends that are coming to get a gram. Because like I said, there was cooking going on. They're coming to get their gram, and they literally, when they see him, tell me that all I can do is call the ambulance and leave me to get my husband off that porch. This is so-called friends.
Yeah.
Leave me with a 2-year-old to get my husband off that porch and get him in that car. So we end up on the side of the road, because by this time my son, he has climbed out of the car seat when we got about to Fawn Grove. He's climbed out of the car seat and he's over on top of his daddy, and 2 years old, and I'm just freaking out. So I pulled over in somebody's yard, and a nurse just happened to be passing, and they stopped, and they got Michael back to life long enough for the ambulance to get there. We got to the Tupelo Hospital. This is when the truth comes out. My mom, his mom, everybody's sitting here, and the truth comes out, because the doctors have to know, and my dad knew what was going on. And he's like, baby, you got to tell them what is wrong, because they can give him medicine that can kill him with those drugs. So here's the truth. My mom ain't speaking to me. His mom ain't speaking to him. Everybody's just sitting in the hospital, and I'm sitting there tweaked out on the same dope that he had, thinking, I'm fixing to die. And he's fixing to die. And he did. At 10 o'clock the next morning, the doctors came in, and they told us, his heart went out again, and there was nothing else we could do. He's gone. So I and my family and his family went and told him bye. And so there comes excuse number one. There's excuse number one. I started having panic attacks. I would not look at meth anymore, but I thought I had to have things other than that. Like, I kept smoking my weed. The doctors told me I was having panic attacks because I watched him die, so they gave me Xanax. So now I have a good excuse to slobber on myself. And the doctor gave me that. So I'm all feeling sorry for myself about my husband. My 2-year-old's running around doing as he pleases. You know that. Tracy knows that. Y'all was around when we was doing this.
That's right.
But I had a good excuse. I had a better excuse than anybody. So then and in all that, then I met somebody that kept drugs, and I moved in with him. And that, 12 years straight, we abused each other. I can remember the neighbors calling the law and being drugged around by my ponytail when we didn't have drugs. But I loved him. Had 2 kids with him. I loved him. I had to have him. Everybody in my life tried to drag me out of that. My mama, she was so scared I was gonna get killed. And there's a wonder we didn't kill each other.
Close.
Like, yeah.
Close couple times.
Oh yeah. We put our hands on each other, you know, weekly. And moving on from that, you know, I finally got away from him, and then my 17-year-old, he just died, you know, and go back, it's the cause of death on my husband's death certificate was cardiac arrest because of drug abuse. So Dustin gets very, very sick. He's 17 years old, and we get sent home from the ER with a stomach virus. A week later, he's still not out of the bed. We go back, and they say, well, his organs are failing, and we go to the barn. So we have one side of his heart is not even pumping, so there's not enough blood going to keep his organs living. And in that time, we met a good heart specialist, and she's working overseas now. Her name was Dr. Baldwin, but she was his heart specialist, and she told me that the doctors had did the best they could when his dad died, but they didn't realize that he had a hereditary heart condition, and this was what was going on with Dustin. She said they didn't know what happened, so they said, you know, he had cardiac arrest because there was drugs in his system. So 2 months later, the doctor has said, Dustin, which was my 17-year-old son, his heart has worsened, the other side is sick, and there is nothing we can do. So they send in these doctors and nurses that's hospice, you know, and I wouldn't let them wear their hospice shirt because I didn't let him know this whole 2 months in LeBonner. He had went through so much.
Oh yeah.
But there had to be a time when my dad and me walked in and told him, you know, son, they're saying there's nothing else they can do. Do you want to go home or do you want to stay on these machines? And he was so tired from that 2 months. And he just laid his little head over on my daddy and he said, I just want to go home, Pops. So we went home, and this is, by this time I'm on Spice, because it's legal, you know, beforehand, before they banned it. And so I had yet another excuse to eat as many pills as in this world and smoke as much dope as in this world. And this was all God's fault. I had known God, I told you, through my mom my whole life.
Okay.
But this thing right here, this was my son and my heart, and God could have saved it, but he didn't. So this was all God's fault. I come home after we buried Dustin, and I moved back in with my mother, and I'm still smoking Spice. My other 2 kids are still eating noodles. You know what I'm saying? Because I really just got an excuse now to do what I want to do. It's all about Nikki still.
Yeah.
Even though, you know, everybody around me's hurting and they can't say it because they're afraid to make me cry. But it's all about me. Yeah. My whole family was hurting. My kids had lost their brother, and they were 13.
I could understand.
12 and 13. Yeah. But it was all about me. So I had to be high. And my mama, she never gave up. And she would say, you know, Brother Shane's having church down here at Open Door on Saturday nights because it's summertime and we need to go. And I'm like, I don't want nothing to do with your God. Don't come at me with that right now. And she wouldn't fight and she wouldn't argue. She would just cry. And you could just know what I know now is she would be sitting there praying. And she would just say, we need to go to church. Every Saturday she'd start in. So this one Saturday I was like, I'm going to shut her up. I'm going to shut her up one way or the other because I'm done listening to this. So I smoked me 2 blunts. She didn't bother me. She knew I was out in the yard smoking weed. And we loaded up and all the way to Open Door from Ryan's Well. I told her, how sorry God was, and that I didn't want nothing to do with her God, and that I just didn't want to hear it. And she sat over there, and she just drove, and she wouldn't say nothing, and tears were just rolling. And I know she was praying all the way down there, and we sit down, we're late, because if anybody knows Mom Pam's late for everything she does, especially when Nikki's out in the yard getting high, you know. So we're late, and we come in, we sit down on the back row. All I could do was cry.
Yeah.
I mean, you feel that spirit. When you know God, you know God. Whether you walked away from Him, run away from Him, whatever you've done, God's still there, no matter what you're doing or where you're at in your life. So I'm sitting there and I'm just listening to Brother Shane, and I'm just crying. And in the middle of his message, like, he didn't know what was going on with me or how I felt or nothing. But in the middle of his message, he walks back there and he said, the Lord said, tell you that He's got Dusty right there. And that it's time you got a grip. You know, and I just lost it. And I'm not going to say things have been perfect since then. Like, I figured out that the Lord had me. And, you know, there's reasons that God does what He does. I still don't know why He took Dustin. But I do know that me and Dustin's brother and sister serve the Lord now. And there's a lot of lives been touched, you know, through that.
That's right.
Through my sober recovery, through my jail ministry. Damien, you know, he has his rap, his God's movement, his Christian rap. Destiny Lachey is my children's leader in CR. Like, our whole family is whole, and we're in church, you know, and like, you know, when I got a hold of y'all and I was like, come to CR. You know, I knew where y'all were. I've been there. And that story that I have, it's trust. People trust. We always said a head knows a head. Okay. So when people see me now and I'm going to church and they don't hear me say cuss words and things like that, then they know that somebody did that. I did not do that on my own. So that's the Lord.
That's right.
But like I said, it hadn't been perfect. You know, I fell. I ran back 2 or 3 good times. And I can remember dropping my kids off at church and going to get high. But the Lord never turned me loose, even though I turned Him loose. He never turned me loose. There was always that conviction, and there was always that in my heart saying, you can't do this. He brought you through so much. You can't do this. You owe Him. And, you know, if the Lord never done anything else for me, my friends and people, like acquaintances that I've worked with, and people that hear my story, they're like, how are you not in the loony bin? How are you not crazy? That's that peace that God gave me. In that floor at Open Door Worship Center with Brother Shane and, you know, people around me praying women. And that peace that nobody can understand. Like, sometimes I can tell my story without crying. Sometimes I bawl like a baby. But it's always that God has me, and I know that He has Dustin, because Dustin got saved before he passed away, and Brother Shane baptized him down there in Beans Ferry Boat Ramp. You know, and
the other day.
And it's just it's like it's that peace that I know that no matter what, that He's got me, and we're gonna make it.
And you know, something else, you know, about your story that the viewers don't know, you're a survivor of cancer.
I am.
And
I was actually looking at the Facebook yesterday. You know how it has those memories. And my memories came up May the 13th of 2017 when my daughter posted, y'all please pray for my family and my mama. No question, just please pray. And that's when they had set us down in the doctor's office and told us that I had stage 2 cervical cancer. And stage 2 meant that it had came out of my cervix and into my lymph nodes, so they couldn't do a hysterectomy. They couldn't get rid of it without me taking months and months of treatments. I had to take chemo every Monday for 6 weeks, and I had to take 42 radiation treatments every day. My mom got up and took me to Corinth, to the cancer center, and I took radiation. And then in August, let me go back. When we found out, Brother Shane prayed over me, and the Lord told him, in 6 months, you'll be normal. You'll be who you were. And this is a time where people was holding my head up in church, Sister Jennifer, Brother Shane's wife.
Yeah.
Love her, love her, love her.
I remember
Held
that.
me up one night, and my
Yeah.
best friend Monica on the other side, and
Yeah.
they held me up so I could worship.
Yeah.
I was so sick from chemo and radiation. But 6 months to the day in August, the same day I found out on Friday the 13th in May. And in August, I found out on Friday the 13th, well, September, because August was my last treatment, the last Monday in August. And that Friday the 13th in September, I found out that it was gone. And they told me I was in remission, but I'm not in remission, I'm healed.
Yeah.
That's going to be 4 years old in the next couple of months, and there's nothing, no sign of anything,
That's right.
nothing.
You know, I think what you just said, healed, is like I said, being in addiction over all these years. You know, I do believe I am healed of that now. I do believe I'm cured.
Yeah.
But every day can be. Every day you walk out in the real world, you're gonna have temptation. You're gonna
Yes,
have
sir.
people come to you, and you know there's a lot of thems out there that's gonna try to tempt you and say, "Won't you just come and hang out with us?"
That's right.
Well, you know, now I say, "Won't you come and hang out with me, and let me show you what I'm doing." And wherever I'm at, it's Jesus Christ standing here with me.
That's it.
It's not where I say here, when I'm out there, or when I'm in church, or if I'm at Walmart. I'm telling you, Jesus Christ saved my life, because he gave me a new one.
That's
And,
it.
and I know he gave you one. And I know one day you're going to be with your husband, your family, and Dustin. You
That's
know, I
right.
love them all, you know. And like I said, me, you, Tracy, we all grew up together.
That's it.
And, you know, I do believe, if you, you know, I feel in my heart, God talks to me, and he told me, man, that if I give him everything, he'll give me anything I want, you know. And who can do that out on the streets for you? Who promises you
Come on.
everything?
That's the truth.
You know what I mean? I don't know no other person that can promise you that, you know, I can help you, I can get you out of the suffering, I can heal you. You know,
And
he
he'll do it.
you know, he touch a man and make him see. He takes another one and takes leprosy out of him. It's all, we don't read out of trick Bibles. That's Brother Shane.
That's Brother Shane.
You know, we don't. It's in the Word, and that Word's been here a long time for me. I just, you know, it took me a little longer to believe.
That's it.
And I'm so glad I ain't an orphan no more.
Right.
And he's got a seat at his table for me. He done said, he said, I said, you still got work, but when you come home, you got a seat.
That's it.
And I know you do. And all my brothers and sisters out there, I can't give you what I got. Nikki cannot give you what she has in her heart for the Lord. But I promise you, the Lord has something for you. And if you just lay it down to him, talk to him like your friend, your father,
Absolutely.
you know, because that's what he is.
Yeah.
And he don't want nothing but you to say, he died for you, and he gave you his blood so you could live forever. You know,
Absolutely.
and you know, I don't know another person that could give you anything what
Even
God,
close.
yeah, even close, yeah, you know. But I think life's good, man. But
Amen.
being a Christian ain't easy. A sinner's easy,
Yeah.
cause man, we can do anything. There ain't no road. Being a Christian though, it's hard, but it's rewarding every day.
That's it.
Because I get to bring people peace, and I get to bring people home when they're lost. When you can make somebody smile, that Jesus loves you, and if he loves you, I love you. Because I love everybody like Jesus now. And I don't have a hate bone in my body no more. And I used to be that kind of person your mama and daddy warned you about. You know what I mean? I'm the person they told you about. not to come around. But now, I hope I'm the person coming behind and doing something.